Welcome to Wrasslin Raw!
All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Raw became war and attitude ruled. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
This podcast is presented in the most complete format possible due to the original production technical difficulties.
We should just do an experiment and have long, prolonged amounts of silence with maybe like some background noise, my cat running around,
And we come back to 0 listeners next week.
Joe Giammatteo.
Don't do it, honky. Don't do it now.
Hold me back. I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history. One episode of Raw is War at a time. But first, a very special welcome to one of the few countries that we haven't claimed in our fan base yet, Vietnam. It's officially a pin on the map. We own Vietnam. What do you think, boys?
Took long enough.
Someone call up Nixon. We got it.
We're fortunate to have some boots on the ground over there in Vietnam spreading the good word, I think. But anyway, to our new listeners in Vietnam, thank you for tuning in. Good to have you here. Hope you keep coming back. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on April 14th, 1997. This Raw was recorded at the Johannesburg Stadium, which is the name that JR gives it. It's not listed in any of my research material that I could find, as well as a station or a stadium somewhere or arena maybe somewhere in America that is similarly unnamed, and was also recorded in Johannesburg, South Africa, and also a town in America that wasn't named or available to me. So hopefully that's the last bump we have here in the road.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, we're also going to get on commentary Vince McMahon, Jim Ross, Jim Cornette, and the Honky Tonk Man.
All of that commentary is going to be crystal clear, no problems.
Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then. Let's get it over with. My God. They laid the... So this is my first note right off the bat. Just if anybody wants to, highlight some of the crystal clarity that we had going into this. My God, they laid the pyro in hard down in South Africa or the USA or Kuwait or wherever any of this was happening. I was pretty confused with the way that this was presented last week. And then the reality that we're getting here in our intro, the way that they're making this sound is that we're going to be dividing our time between America, South Africa, and then maybe Kuwait also. Did you guys get that vibe at the start here, or am I just misinterpreting this?
No, I'm right there with you. I thought by the end we were maybe going to locate Carmen Sandiego.
The multiple venue for WrestleMania 2 was such a smashing success. It'll be great tonight. Oh, by the way, there's a pay-per-view in 6 days. So this company wants you to pay money to watch one of their programs. In 6 days.
That can't be true.
If it is true, I'm sure they're going to give us the best possible content now to get us ready for it, right?
To get you to spend your money, yeah.
Because they want to lay that groundwork. They want to put butts in seats, as the professionals out there in the podcasting world call it. Okay. An ass every 18 inches, so we'll find out if that does it. Things start off pretty positively with what a rush to kick off our first match of the night. The Godwins, Henry and Phineas, defeat the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal, by pinfall in 6 minutes and 13 seconds. Things got started pretty quickly, pretty hot between these two matches. This was not a scientific match. This was not at all. This was a bruiser of a match. And I gathered that this match was taking place in America because we had Vince McMahon and Jim Cornette on the call. The segments that may or may not have Jim Ross and the Honky Tonk Man are going to be the segments in South Africa. Right off the bat with this match, something like felt off about it. Like, we shouldn't have these two teams in the ring at the same time. I wish I could put it better than that. I really wasn't able to articulate it better than that. It's almost like there's a clash of eras here. And even though LOD came before the Godwins, they feel like the more modern team somehow.
They're both also like fan favorite baby faces, which makes it a little awkward too. Cause I mean, really all they're doing here is pushing the Godwins further down the ladder.
Well, yeah.
Cause up against the Legion of Doom, they're gonna lose with the fans.
Yeah. Yeah. Henry and Hawk looked pretty good together. Nice and stiff, nothing to really complain about there. But as you say, Ryan, the crowd was totally behind LOD here, though multiple chants going off during the match. I wasn't enthusiastic about the tag champs, Owen and Bulldog, coming down to the ring. But that didn't get drawn out at all because when they interfered, the ref didn't see it. Animal goes down after taking a belt to the head. Henry gets the pinfall on him. And there was zero aftermath to this because we got hurried off to South Africa pretty quickly. I don't know if I'm just letting my trepidation over this episode get the best of me with this. Like, it's not like this was a bad match at all, but it didn't feel important or part of a championship scene or maybe building towards a championship match at a pay-per-view. This was all around serviceable, I guess, but it was a throwaway match too. Ryan, what did you think of this?
It starts off and it's pretty blatant that the Godwins music is being dubbed over, and because it's like you could just see that it's screwing with the true audio, like the sound coming from the arena and commentary was toned way down and all we heard was this fake hillbilly music. So that was kind of funny, but they got a long entrance. They've been treated like jobbers here for a little while, but they got the full entrance and they pick up the win. It's not a clean win, but they win here. So we don't have any jobbers of the week this week. And when I first saw the match, I was almost leaning. I was like, well, if they take a quick loss to the Legion of Doom, I might have to do them as jobber of the week, but they were saved. As you mentioned, and I brought up while you were talking, the crowd was just solely behind Legion of Doom and chanting their name on multiple occasions, just burying the Godwins even further. And I noticed at one point, you could clearly see the giant stain from Vernon White's puddle of blood from last week when Ken lost his temper. It happens.
Yeah, it does.
But the action was solid, serviceable. I can't complain about it. These two big bruiser teams, they do their job, and I think the crowd enjoyed watching it. But I didn't like Cornette telegraph the ending a little bit, saying the last time Legion of Doom lost a match on television, it was in black and white, and you just kind of felt he wouldn't say that unless we're going to get a surprise, quote-unquote, loss here, And the ending wasn't great. Bulldog and the Owen come out to cause the interference to get the win, but a solid match. I didn't hate it by any means, but it could have been better for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned Vernon White's blood is still all over the canvas here, so we are obviously not live, pal. This is a taped show, and they still managed to completely fuck it up through the entire broadcast, so that's a shame. But yeah, this match was a little bit odd, but I sniffed out the Bulldog and Owen interference from the very beginning. I think it was just too obvious that was going to happen. And I guess rightfully so if you're going to build a pay-per-view match between those two teams. Jim Cornette was a little confusing to me because we haven't seen him in a while, and he's sort of giving me some babyface vibes during the intro and a little bit during this match. So I'm not sure what he's going for there. I don't know if he does other shows and does that because we're only watching Raw.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Wasn't he hosting another show?
Yeah, I want to say like Superstars or something. Yeah. But that's a little confusing, something to watch, I guess, moving forward. And Vince mentioned that the Godwins are former tag team champions, and I have to say, I legitimately don't remember that. And we've been watching this.
I remember it, but I think, wasn't it only for like a week or something?
I have no memory of it, which is hilarious.
I don't remember the length of it, but I want to say, wasn't it at about the time when Sunny was doing her back and forth thing with Phineas?
Yes.
And the Bonnie Donnas? And
I thought they won them briefly and then lost them almost immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't stick with me at all.
That memorable.
Well, I mean, you could pretty much say that the tag division as a whole has been unmemorable for years now at this point. All right, well, as I said, we're going to go to South Africa now for our next match. Hunter Hearst Helmsley with China defeats Double J Jesse James by pinfall in 14 minutes and 52 seconds. Hell of a lot of time for old Double J Jesse James here. Hunter's entrance highlighted the difference between Hunter's gimmick and the image of China. He needs to just fucking drop it and get with her on the whole gimmick thing, because nothing about her needs changed. She looks just right the way she is, and she is making Hunter look like something that is just, it sticks out like a sore thumb. The video and audio quality of this match was poor, although not nearly as bad as other international recordings we've seen. Video specifically was 10 times better than that shit we got out of Germany. And as far as audio goes, my first note, commentary was silent at the start of this. I wasn't sure if it was some kind of like audio glitch, but then as soon as I was typing that, we got the chyron up at the bottom of the screen that this is being presented in the most complete version possible, and I immediately started wondering what 15 minutes of commentary silence is going to be like. We did eventually get commentary back. It sounded artificial in its clarity, but we only got it back briefly, like they were editing in chopped up pieces where they thought it should go during the match. Even with that being said, don't let me fool you, the bulk of this had no commentary to it. It was surreal to watch this with no voices, putting what we're seeing into context. It's almost like we were present at a live show. Like if we were out in the crowd, we wouldn't be hearing commentary. We wouldn't be hearing all of the shit that, Jim Ross is going on about, or maybe the Honky Tonk Man.
But you'd at least have the crowd and the sound of the arena. This was just weird.
Yeah, barely had that. In the match, these two weren't doing too bad together, but the lack of commentary made this kind of boring for me, honestly. This entire episode became an experiment in what I was willing to both tolerate and also, I guess, maybe what draws me into the show, what draws me into being a wrestling fan. That silence was especially off-putting during Jesse James's rally when he was no-selling and showboating. For some reason, it made it look like 10 times faker than it usually does. Thankfully, we got some input from commentary just in time to know that the Honky Tonk Man wanted to interfere, so he goes over and he trips up Jesse James in retribution for smashing that heirloom. Hunter gets the pedigree for the pin off of that. After that, we get China Must Pose. They're in the ring. And then Jesse James challenges Honky Tonk Man to get in the ring, which he almost does while saying that his new protege was going to get Jesse at the pay-per-view. And then, just to cap things off with this surreal segment, we got a final view of Todd Pettingzoo at the Slammies looking very awkward, while Sable's narrow ass was walking around mostly naked in a golden wrestling ring. Joe, it seems like none of this is going to make sense or go well, so I'm just going to roll with it. China looks good no matter what country you're in, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she does. Although it's a little disappointing she didn't really get physically involved in this match. I was hoping 2 weeks in a row that Honky Tonk Man would get destroyed by somebody, but imagine China body slamming Honky Tonk Man. How amazing that would be.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
But it did not happen, so just more disappointment. Something that Eric Bischoff always says is that WCW was a TV company putting on a wrestling show, and WWE was a wrestling company putting on a TV show. And it's very evident here tonight. Honestly, many other times through 96 and 97 that we've been watching, that the broadcast and the production quality is just shit. So it's really surprising to see it so often, especially tonight, and a show that's not live. I mean, I understand they're overseas, but it's not live, so I'm not sure what happened here. But this match was, it's Cousin Eddie versus Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and the fucking goofing around showboat dancing is just so cheesy and terrible. And then you get Honky Tonk Man in there to make it even more cheesy. Honky Tonk Man getting up on the apron, teasing, getting in the ring. It's very 1980s and cheesy. And we get to cap it off with Sable's pancake ass.
The first thing I wondered when they cut to South Africa and we see the shitty camera, I'm wondering, does customs not allow quality cameras in or out of the U.S.? Because every time they're out of the U.S., we get this shitty camera work, and I don't really get it. It looks like the camera from WrestleMania 3 is what the camera looks like, but the match starts and we have these production issues from the start, and I'm thinking, the actual match itself wasn't bad. Hunter might be a good person for Road Dogg to go up with. He was selling for him pretty well for the most part, and for once Hunter wasn't up against Goldust, so that was a plus. But there's really no denying it that watching a wrestling match on television with no commentary just destroys it. I mean, even Vince McMahon throwing out maneuver every other word is better than dead silence. This was just, it got really weird, and you didn't want to continue watching it, because as you said, it's okay when you're live, it feels different, but when you're just sitting at home in front of a dead silent television with a loud hum from production issues, it's unnerving, and it really ruined what I thought was a pretty decent match. I mean, minus Road Dogg's hand gyrations and dancing, and that was ridiculous and needs to stop. But outside of that, not bad ring work, but they ruined it again at the end with Honky coming in and interrupting the match. Jesse ends up getting hit in the stomach with some brass knuckles or something, and Hunter gets the win. But it's a shame that something that could have been a decent match is being completely destroyed by production problems here, especially seeing these two future fellow faction members together wrestling. That's kind of cool, and I felt like it was ruined.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. This is like a strange wrestling version of Nietzsche's Abyss. You stare into the abyss and the abyss gazes back into you. You sit here and watch wrestling in silence, and pretty soon all you can hear is your own thinking, and you're thinking to yourself, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I sitting here watching this in complete silence? That's all right, though. I mean, it's just the one match, right? Things will get better as we go on.
Clearly. They have to.
Yeah, I mean, let's keep it moving here. Earlier today, the WWF superstars, they were welcomed to Africa with some ethnic tribal dancing, and that looked pretty cool. That was a pretty neat little scene. I'm guessing it was a welcome, since we had almost no audio over that, but that was the segue into our next match. Savio Vega with Crush in the Nation of Domination defeats Rocky Maivia by pinfall in 17 minutes and 35 seconds. Clocking in at 17 minutes, I really hoped commentary would be there for the majority of this. 17 minutes. D'Lo's suit. D'Lo Brown, still unnamed here, by the way, before I get too far with that. He's still just an unnamed background person. Very ill-fitting suit. Made me think of David Byrne's Talking Heads suit. And that made me wonder just how well of a gimmick like the Nation of Domination went over in a country like South Africa. Like over here in America, there's legitimate connotations for it being the way it is, but in South Africa, they have a very different history when it comes to racism, and so this whole thing got a little bit interesting for me there. Speaking of, Vince interrupted some commentary to ask if the Honky Tonk Man got invited to meet Nelson Mandela. What the fuck kind of a meeting would that have been like? I bet you got a lot of them heirlooms around here. Did they survive the war?
Honky Tonk Man doesn't even know who he is. It sounded like.
Right after that, though, we got a split screen with Ahmed Johnson holding that 2x4 as if it were his child. And the audio problems continued here. I couldn't understand what Ahmed was saying. I did enjoy Honky Tonk Man sneaking in the phrase, "You're going down," as parting words to Ahmed. I mean, that was pretty cheap and childish, but it was fitting. And then I sat in silence for quite a while, up until Farouk made an appearance in an arm sling. Savio was applying a Vulcan nerve pinch, and it was a miracle that Rocky was able to rally out of that. Towards the end of this match, The Rock gave a rock bottom that looked great. Yeah. It wasn't called that, but that was a solid rock bottom. And then just again, a little more time passed up until the finish. Afterwards, the Nation were up in the ring to whip Rocky with a leather strap. That drew out Ahmed Johnson with his 2x4 to clear the ring. And with a shot of Sonny in a bikini this time, this segment was over. Guys, this episode taught me a lot about myself, mainly in that I think I need commentary to be able to pay attention to the match. Ryan, what did you have on this?
Yeah, and, last week, Bartlett, you brought up these two opponents against each other at that house show at Youngstown, right?
Yeah.
Rocky versus Savio Vega. So,
yeah.
And we said that we were a little bit interested to see that, and we got our wish here, for better or for worse. At the beginning, it wasn't terrible. Rock and Savio were going at it pretty quick, but the lack of commentary again, not helping things out. And then when Farouk comes down, about the point where Farouk comes down in the arm brace, this match just slowed way down. And we just got lots of rest holds for pretty much the next 10 minutes. I mean, Vega even pulled out the Yoko's Vulcan nerve pinch. And then after what seemed like an hour, Rocky finally starts to rally. He pulls off a good-looking fisherman suplex. And then, as you pointed out, the rock bottom, nice flurry of moves. And then Vega gets a quick win with a handful of tights. And then the Nation comes in, starts beating on Rocky. That causes Ahmed Johnson to come down. Maybe in South Africa, 2x4s are not common because this looked more like a 4x6 or something. It was a little bit bigger than a 2x4. And with that extra weight, Ahmed goes extra easy. He really forgot how to swing that thing, and it looked terrible again.
It was treated. It was a slightly heavier.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree the highlight of this show is Vince making the decision to not pay for PG-13's flight to South Africa. This match was probably, for me, the only thing that had a sprinkling of anything good tonight. And I want to exaggerate the word sprinkling because it's not enough. But I want to say that I think Savio, for 1997 standards, I think Savio actually looks pretty badass as a Nation guy.
Yeah, he looks good.
Farouk does not come out during the entrance, but I think Savio has a good look that goes well with Farouk's look. He's got the coat, the long coat, the glasses, and the hat. So I think it looks good.
He looks like the solid number 2 of the Nation, yeah. Yeah,
definitely. Farouk does eventually come out. He's in a sling, so there's not much that he's going to do that's going to be effective. The rock bottom this was the first time we saw that. It does not put Savio away, but it was nice to see that move. And I thought everything here was pretty decent until this 2x4 or 4x6, whatever it was, came into play. Like, Ahmed Johnson does not need to have a 2x4. He comes out and the crowd they love this guy. Just come out and have him throw some punches. I don't understand why they insist on this 2x4.
I mean, the 2x4 would be fine if he actually swung it with some authority and made it look good.
Right, and the fact that he doesn't makes it look even worse for the guys who have to sell for it, and it looks fake and terrible. But I kind of like that Savio got this win. I guess these two are going to have a match at the pay-per-view, I think, right?
Who's to say?
Yeah.
I like that Savio won by cheating, and that the Nation came out to attack Rocky, because obviously we know in the future we're going to get some pretty good stuff between Rocky and the Nation.
Yeah.
Maybe this is kind of tickling our taints a little bit.
The start of it, maybe.
Ahmed Johnson walked into a lumber store and said, "I'd like some dimensional lumber," and they reached into the 4th dimension to pull some out. Well, the end of that segment was the changeover from Raw to Raw is War. And with that, we got a review of Stone Cold Steve Austin negotiating his match against Bret Hart with Gorilla Monsoon on Raw last week. We also got a replay of the response of that from Owen and the Bulldog. Steve Austin then came out to what I guess was the American side of this show to get interviewed by Vince McMahon. They really didn't do a very good job of delineating when they were going back to America, but they made sure to throw up that South African flag every time they went back to South Africa. Steve is very happy that he got that match that he wanted, and he's looking forward to getting his turn at screwing Bret Hart, even though I'm pretty sure he already got a turn at screwing Bret Hart back at the Royal Rumble. But that's just being a nitpicking dickbag. This was a brief interlude here in the States. So, Ryan, please, what did you think of Stone Cold's brief interview here?
I thought Stone Cold gave a classic Stone Cold promo here. I mean, there was nothing really to point out or highlight or special, but good promo by Stone Cold. I did laugh, though, at the end. Stone Cold doesn't finish with, "That's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so," but Vince had to add it in. As Stone Cold was leaving, he gets on there and says, "Oh, because he says so." Got to get that soundbite in there.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to feel about this. Not the interview itself, but just the fact that these two are going to have a match again, because the match they had at WrestleMania was, I mean, if any wrestling fan said that's their favorite match of all time, I don't think anybody would have a problem with that.
It feels like they need to let that simmer a little more.
Well, it's Sid's fault. It's the pitchers and catchers are reporting, and he needs to get out there. So that really sucks, but I don't know. I'm not sure what to expect at that. I don't remember their match at this pay-per-view at all. So that's just, I don't know. I'm not too excited.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, they've done almost nothing to get you excited for that pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And that match is probably going to be the only... Oh, yeah, wait a second. There's going to be a championship match, too. My God. How easily we forget these things.
And that's an Undertaker-Mankind match, so...
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure it's going to be good, but, like, just so much of it feels throwaway. Maybe it's just the lack of build-up again to another pay-per-view. Let's not dwell on that. Let's go back to South Africa and the sound of silence for our next match. Goldust defeats the Sultan with the Iron Sheik by disqualification in 11 minutes. Damn, really surprised that the Iron Sheik was able to get on a plane, legally able to get on a plane and go someplace. Thank God they didn't take Bob Backlund, though. After this match started, we cut to a commercial on a scene of Marlena stripping in that golden ring in front of a clearly terrified Todd Pettingzoo. And then we came back to the match in progress. It seemed like the South Africans were liking Goldust. I mean, keep in mind, we only had muffled crowd noise to go by, like it was maybe the backup microphone on a handheld camera somewhere. I don't know.
Up in the nosebleed section.
We were able to get a little bit of something, and it seemed like there was a little more noise whenever Goldust was on top and getting heat. And that's kind of the bulk of my notes here. I'm hoping you guys have more on this than I do, because I more or less zoned out until China and Hunter Hearst Helmsley interfered in this match to give Goldust the win. Joe, please, what did I miss that you might have picked up?
Nothing.
Yeah, okay. I didn't think so, but...
So the Sultan's pile driver looks extremely scary.
Yeah.
I noted that. Outside of that, I don't really have anything else to say. I'm always critical of the random heel helping a random heel, and that's what happened here. Helmsley comes out to help out the Sultan to beat up on Goldust, which, I don't know, it's probably nitpicking dickbag stuff, but why would that even happen? I don't know. Why wouldn't Helmsley just beat up Goldust in the back or something, you know?
Yeah.
Why does he have to go out and help the Sultan? I'm not a fan of that. And the Sultan gimmick sucks.
Yeah. We pretty much start out in the middle of this match with no audio, and if there's a match that desperately needed audio, this was it. I mean, have we seen a good match with the Sultan yet? I don't think we have.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. And then Hunter and China coming out to keep this long, tired feud that they have with Goldust going. This was just all around a real stinker. Thankfully, it didn't last very long, though.
Yeah. Well, let's keep it going here. We're going to go to Kuwait next. Remember, I mentioned Kuwait at the start of all of this because there was a certain amount of talk about it, but I guess we're not going to Kuwait for any kind of wrestling match. We're going to Kuwait for an ECW-style promo from Bret Hart. I guess he was doing some wrestling there that we were not allowed to film or see, or maybe that footage got destroyed. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell at this point. But we got 3 or 4 different camera angles and versions of Bret saying that American fans don't understand the difference between right and wrong anymore. Yeah, that's pretty fucking spot on. And that was the bulk of this statement from Bret. He more or less repeated the same things in a variety of ways from a variety of camera angles and a variety of locations, all apparently within Kuwait. That's not an exaggeration. They had to say the same points again and again, at least close to half a dozen times, I'm saying. Again, Joe, anything I missed here? Anything to write home about from Kuwait?
No, just repetitive, this whole thing. And I know the whole gimmick is anti-America with Brett, but I prefer the Canadian hero type anti-American than this version of Brett, which is basically just slamming American fans and not talking good about being a Canadian hero. And that's the heel version of Brett that I like.
I agree. And, I don't necessarily hate Bret Hart talking bad about America. It's just it was so repetitive. The last couple weeks has just been the same points over and over again, and we're not really getting anything new. And it really, the only time that we've talked bad about it has been when they went to these promo videos that were recorded ahead of time and edited. That seems to be what we're not liking. What we like is when we actually see Bret Hart in the ring talking from his heart, so to speak. Yeah. But this was almost a duplicate of last week's video and still nothing too fantastic.
Yeah, that's a good call that you made there. It seems like the live stuff, and Joe, you've mentioned it not just for Bret Hart, but Hawk of LOD and a couple other people. Give them a live mic, and those times are when we become the most entertained. And it's the times like these when they have a heavy amount of production and editing in the material that we like the least.
Right.
Hopefully they figured that out and we get more live as we progress. I'm pretty sure we do, but I'm just not sure how soon we're going to get that. But in the meantime, let's go back now to America for our next match. Mankind and Vader, with Paul Bearer, defeat the Headbangers, Mosh and Thrasher, by disqualification in 5 minutes and 45 seconds. This time entrances got interrupted so we could see one of the Funkettes in a bikini there in the stage before going to break, that weird golden stage that we mentioned earlier. And then at least Vader is also coming out to Mankind's music. So there's that. We all know where the bread is buttered in that particular relationship. And I loved when Mankind and both of the Headbangers went off to wrestle by themselves on the ramp, leaving Vader to stand in the ring alone, just mastodoning it up in there by himself. That's where I'm at with Vader. All I can do is just laugh and try to think of clever Mastodon jokes for him, because God knows I can't take him fucking seriously in the ring. And once again, there was not much going on for me to comment on. I like seeing Mankind give his double arm DDT. That's great shit, pal. And it was good to see it here, but that's about it up until the finish. Mosh spit some kind of liquid into the face of Mankind, which the referee miraculously witnessed. Couldn't have been Earl Hebner. That drew the DQ. But then in the confusion of being blinded, Mankind accidentally got a hold of Vader, applying the mandible claw and putting Vader to the mat. Vince sells the hush of the live crowd there as being speechless. I don't know if that's it, Vince, but good try. And once they clear the ring, the cameras go back to South Africa, where I guess the Undertaker's spooky powers reached across the Atlantic, giving a voiceover over the PA system and then flicking the light switches there in Johannesburg. Ryan, I really wish we could have had this match in a normal episode of Raw. As it stands, I mean, I was already past the point of caring when we got to it, but if we had had this in a mix of other good matches, or at least other serviceable matches and better production, maybe this could have been close to being a highlight, but we got it here. What did you think of this match?
Yeah, I didn't think it was terrible, but it is kind of hurt by just all of the surrounding mood of tonight. We start off, and as you said, Vader mastodoning it up. He's grunting at some people in the crowd. And I have to say, Vader's looking a little bit trimmer.
Yeah.
I know Joe said a couple months ago that he was working on losing some weight, and I think it's finally starting to show. And to be honest with you, I think it showed with him being a little bit quicker in the ring as well. I mean, he still doesn't sell worth shit, and he makes any move that anyone else does look like absolute garbage, but he is moving a little bit quicker. And, to highlight his non-selling, there's a point where Mosh is laying in right hands, and Vader's just not selling selling a single one of them. And in the middle of the flurry, Vader starts just rallying back, and Mosh looked legitimately confused, like he wasn't ready, and was like, what the fuck? Why aren't you selling any of these punches? But Mankind, when he came in, he looked great working with both of the headbangers. And so I thought all around that the ring work was fairly solid. But then for some reason, Mosh pulls his inner Quang and spits some kind of liquid into Mankind's face, blinding him. That was just confusing to me. I guess it's just to set up Mankind blindly putting the mandible claw on Vader, further teasing our taints here, because we have to replace the Bulldog and Owen situation got, sorted out. So something has to take its place. Kind of an okay match, but ruined by the circumstances.
Yeah, I really dislike this tag team, Vader and Mankind. There's really nothing to like about it. We're getting more taint tickling with a split between these guys like we saw with Owen and Bulldog. And they're doing shit, like you said, Ryan, to set it up that just doesn't make sense. Mosh is all of a sudden spitting shit in people's eyes now, I guess. Just none of it makes sense to lead to these two guys having issue with each other. There's lots of talk on commentary about the pay-per-view, in particular Mankind versus Undertaker, but you got Mankind in a tag team with Vader right now. It's just, I have no excitement for his match because he's in a tag team. And because of that, I have no excitement for the Mankind versus Undertaker match because most likely we're going to see some sort of Vader interference in that match.
Well, and why was there no build-up to that match here?
Right. Yeah, there's nothing. We get this Undertaker promo over a PA system.
In another country.
South Africa.
Yeah.
Not at Mankind in the arena he's at.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, I don't know. Just really poorly executed from all aspects here.
Yeah, that's a great point, Joe. And instead of getting like a solo match to put Mankind over as a credible threat towards Undertaker going into the pay-per-view, we get him in a tag match where he's just dragged down by Vader.
And last time Mankind had a random shot at the title, it was amazing. Yeah. It was against Shawn Michaels, but now we put him in this, we've handicapped him by putting him in a tag team with Vader.
All right, well, let's talk about some brighter things here. Courtesy of Vince Russo and Raw Magazine, we got multiple softcore non-nude images of Sable up on our screen.
Well, she was nude. It was just not revealed.
Yeah, and these were still images. We got video footage after that, though, of ladies in bikinis up on a golden stage. There was a sexy saxophone backing track. Todd Pettingzoo looking very uncomfortable in many different ways. I want to say that there was Sunny, Marlena, both Funkettes, Sable, of course. And by the way, none of this had any kind of explanation. This was just video on our screen with no overdub of explanation.
Straight TNA.
Yes, mainlining TNA to your homes. No distraction. I mentioned before that I was past the point of caring, and I was still past the point of caring when we went back to South Africa and got that fucking commandant guy back in the ring. Like, I just had this gut feeling like, great, this is going to either take forever, it's going to feel like it's going to take forever. Thankfully, it only felt like it took forever. But I had to wonder again here, like, I was this guy going to get over in any way in South Africa? Because, like, I know nothing about South Africa really at all. Was this gimmick appropriate? Was it not? Was it cartoony to them? Did it feel real? Like, I don't know. It feels like it would have been way too big of a risk, alienating and possibly pissing off an entire arena full of people with this cartoonish, shitty fucking representation of something that is, I don't know, part of their military history, I guess. I don't know. It was a head scratcher why he was here to begin with, but now it's even more of a head scratcher why he's on my fucking screen again.
You love it.
You're getting a Commandant action figure for Christmas.
Oh, God.
It's in the mail. Buy now.
and an 8x10 of Todd Pettingzoo at the Slammy Award bikini contest.
Just to make sure it's with one of the most uncomfortable looking facial expressions that he put on it.
Yeah.
Before we move on, I have to ask you guys what you thought about the bikini presentation at the Slammies and anything you might have on Commander Dipshit there. Ryan, why don't you take that first, please?
Well, I mean, the Slammy swimsuit competition, it was certainly not bad to look at. But was it necessary? Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. But the Commandant was even more unnecessary. He clearly bored the locals just as much as he did us. They booed and were indifferent to him as he droned on about law-abiding citizens of both South Africa and America. Nobody cared, and neither did I.
Yeah, the bikini contest from the Slammies, this was like a month ago. I don't know. I guess this was just, hey, in case you missed it.
Yeah.
Here's some TNA for you. Maybe there was a explanation and the commentary was cut off. If not, it makes it even more bizarre. I certainly enjoy seeing these ladies strut their stuff, but this kind of stuff doesn't really hold up that well when you watch it 25 years later, especially when they put this jazzy porno music over top of it.
It sounded like the music for the commercials during the 1-900 commercials, like on on USA. So there you go. Yeah. Maybe they just pulled some of that recorded music.
And as far as the Commandant goes, both of you guys will be receiving a Commandant cameo for your birthday this year, since you both love him so much.
Can't wait. That's got to be a cheap one.
Judging by the length of his speeches, I don't know. He might charge by the minute, and it would get a little pricey.
Wouldn't be worth it.
But yeah, I'm not sure if this is being mixed in with Bret Hart and what he's doing, or if this is like a totally separate extension to that. But I mean, we're going to find out, and we're probably not going to care because nobody really remembers this shit.
Yeah, I'm actually having fun remembering those infomercial videos from Late Night USA cable, now that you brought it up. Like, that's more entertaining in my mind than anything that has to do with this fucking Commandant. Young girls like me are waiting to receive phone calls from hot guys like you. Like, I'm pretty sure I have those scripts memorized.
Yeah, from watching the Jason marathons. And
yeah. All right, let's put a nail in this one. Let's go to our final match of the night. Ahmed Johnson defeats Crush with Farouk by pinfall in 11 minutes and 30 seconds. We started off the match with commentary and with a pissing contest between Crush and Ahmed there in the ring. Ahmed's pads, I think they multiplied. He now has like 4 knee pads on his thighs, in addition to also on his knees. So that's like 2 knee pads on each thigh. And when I say that Ahmed Johnson and Crush put on a clinic of what a match should be, you know I'm just bullshitting to fill some time here, because it sure as shit wasn't that. The alternative, though, is that we could talk about the Vulcan nerve pinch that Crush put on Ahmed and then sat in for a while. Or maybe we could talk about Crush's terrible-looking pile driver that may have legitimately broken Ahmed Johnson's collarbone. At least it looked like it did. Or maybe we could talk about another extended sleeper hold to really milk the drama. Or that really questionable ref distraction where Crush was able to strangle Ahmed with a leather strap and then hit it under his arm while he was in a sleeper hold. I gotta give it to him there. That was a little bit clever, but you're assuming that the referee is completely brain dead in order to get away with it. For as long as that thing was wrapped around Ahmed's neck and then under Crush's arm, that should have led to some kind of brain damage. But then again, with Ahmed, how could you really tell? It's amazing that more people don't reverse out of the heart punch like Ahmed did here, because it takes forever to set up. And whenever I reversed it to watch it and just kind of take a beat by beat count of how long it took to set up, I noticed that Ahmed looked a little half conscious, maybe. Like Crush was checking on him to see if maybe he didn't have that strap a little too fucking tight around Ahmed's neck. And then we got to the finish, an inside cradle out of nowhere from a very visibly winded and possibly asphyxiated Ahmed Johnson. Farouk got on the mic then and made a challenge to Ahmed's quote-unquote charcoal butt. I guess Ahmed has to beat Savio and then Crush, and then Farouk will relinquish control of the Nation of Domination. Finally, some not-so-clear clarity on that challenge that Ahmed made to the Nation of Domination, what was that, last week or the week before? We got zero response from Ahmed, but we do go back to America so we can get the actual name for the first time of next week's pay-per-view. keep in mind, it's next week. Like, this is 5 minutes before the end of the Go Home show, and we are just now getting the official name, this being the In Your House Revenge of the Taker pay-per-view, as well as one or two of the matches we'll find on that card as we fade to black. Honestly, guys, by this point, all I could think was that I was glad this was over, not just the match, but this whole episode. Joe, what did you think about the match and the way that Raw ended tonight?
Well, Crush is in a main event, ladies and gentlemen, on a go-home Monday Night Raw, so...
Blessed be.
Do I need to even continue
That should really let you know how the night went.
But... I will say that I am very happy that Ahmed Johnson countered the heart punch, and we're all happy about that because we don't have to see that move. That was probably the only good thing about this. Yeah, it ends with Farouk cutting this promo that presents a challenge to Ahmed that is extremely confusing and convoluted, and I'm not excited about it at all. I don't even know when it's going to happen, and I don't care.
Yep.
Yeah. The moment I saw who the two opponents were, I knew this was just going to be an absolute slobber knocker, right?
Yep.
Both JR and Honky Tonk warn us at the beginning that this is going to be a slow, boring match, saying, well, they don't use those words, but they say they have to mention that this is going to be a methodical as these two big 300-pounders go at each other. And, there's a tiny bit of action at the beginning, and then immediately Crush rolls out of the ring to waste some time, get some pointers from Farouk. Finally, they get this wrestling match started, and as threatened, it was slow and methodical. Not much action. Commentary goes out again, making it even worse. And then we get Crush using the belt. And I will say, though, after the belt choke out, we get the classic 3-count hand drop. I'm sorry. I'm a sucker for it. I still love that wrestling classic cliche every time I see it. I eat that up, but that wasn't nearly enough to save anything about this match. Ahmed gets a quick cradle pin. Both the reversal and the pin looked bad and not smooth. But then Farouk gets on the mic and nothing made sense about this challenge at all. I'm left just completely confused.
Yeah, that is a great way to describe the feeling that you had coming out of this, that I had coming out of this. Joe, it sounds like you were there too, and it really sounds like the best way to just end this episode. As I said, we faded to black, so let's take it on over now to highlights and lowlights. Ryan, why don't you take that first?
Well, it's a tough one tonight. It was not easy, but if I had a gun to my head and I had to pick one, it would have to be the Legion of Doom and the Godwins. It was a solid tag team match, nothing fantastic, but it was the best that we had to work with tonight. The low light, I'm going to go with the Sultan and Goldust. By the time I got done watching this Raw, I was trying to think about my highlights and lowlights, and I completely forgot about this match until I went back and saw it on my list reviewing my notes. So I think that kind of makes it the low light by default.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway. My highlight is nothing about this show, and my low light is the entire show. I just can't get over it. If someone asked me, what's good about this show, what's good about that, I would tell someone, just do not watch this episode of Raw.
Yeah, you're not going to miss anything. Just skip it.
If you're watching along with us and you haven't reached this one yet, just do not even bother.
Man. Yeah. So actually, Joe, I'm lining up with you. My highlight, I have none this week. I really generally try not to do that, but in this particular case, I am very happy to pretend like this never happened. And that's because my low light was the entire episode. And, I'm realistic. It's nobody's fault that this is all they could put together from what was left of the materials. We're watching this 25 years later with footage that was internationally shipped and God only knows what happened to it and blah, blah, blah. So, whenever we talk about a shitty match between Crush and Ahmed Johnson, not all of the blame goes on just them. It's storing this stuff and remastering it or the inability to do so. But I have a feeling that this episode probably would have sucked even if we were watching it live in 1997.
Yeah.
That's it for me. Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around April 14th, 1997 for us?
I do. Dave Meltzer has some comments about this particular episode of Monday Night Raw. He said that the show was taped on April 9th, and the show sucked.
Yeah.
He gave the Ahmed Johnson versus Crush match a negative 2-star review.
Yep.
And he said it was a worst match of the year candidate.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yep.
They did nothing and were missing everything.
Yes. So. Let the hate flow through you.
ECW held their first ever pay-per-view. It was called Barely Legal. I don't really know too many details about that show, but it received an 84% thumbs up from the Observer readers. So if you're looking for some ECW material to watch, that's probably a good one. The story on Sid, whether or not you want to believe it, is that he has a herniated disc in his back that he suffered while working out in the gym.
Okay. What position did he play in the field?
Well, he may need to play right field now if
Okay.
he's got that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what position he played, but they'll have to put him out there.
With that reach, I mean, he would probably make a pretty good shortstop, right? Maybe even
Yeah,
third
you'd think
base.
so. Yeah. I will end our news on a good note here. Jerry Lawler will return to Raw commentary next week on April 21st. He has missed the last few shows due to some work that he was performing with USWA. Hopefully he will save us from the honky tonk man on commentary. And that is all.
All right. Thank you, Joseph.
Just in the meantime, I was looking up the Commandant, his Wikipedia
Why?
here. And his real name is Robin B. Smith, and he is an actor, Joe, as you pointed out last week. But his list of movies look like just a giant list of B-rate shitty movies, but
Jobber.
Well, yeah.
Jobber movies.
yeah, but he was in The Scorpion King 2 as a high priest, and his most recent movie was a movie called Fried Berry from 2020 as an alien preacher. So he's active up as far as 2020.
Oh, goody.
Jesus, why do you love this guy so much? I'm going to have to tell your wife to start shutting the internet off on you so you can't fucking do this to yourself, Ryan. Man, I'm starting to get worried about you. Keep doing this kind of thing.
Ryan's going to develop a Blu-ray collection of
The Commandant's
movies.
greatest hits.
I'm quite sure they're not on Blu-ray.
straight to DVD, every single one of them.
Betamax.
And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. And if you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and tell all of your friends to tune in to the most international Monday Night Raw review podcast on the airwaves. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at In Your House 14, Revenge of the Taker, with matches featuring Savio Vega, Jesse James, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.